Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. Let's go through the 11 books that I read in July. 11, that's right. How insane. I don't think I've ever read that many books in a month. 10 maybe, but 11, wow. First book that I read was Safe Enough by Lee Child. This was completely out of my comfort zone. I don't usually read books like this, and I'm really pleased that I did. So Safe Enough is basically a bunch of 20 short stories that all contain themes of crime, all sorts of things like that. With the short stories, I think what I liked the most was that when you finish the short stories, it feels really refreshing and almost like a reward, like, yeah, that was really good, let's move on to the next one. I really enjoyed that, and each short story was so gripping. I loved his writing. I think his writing was really well done, if that makes sense. Like, his storytelling was so gripping. And yeah, each short story did feel very similar to the last because they all have the same themes, and the main characters felt quite similar. They were still really interesting and the characters were still really well written, if that makes any sense. A lot of the twists in this book were most of them near the beginning were very samey, and you could see where the story was going, so the twist wasn't quite a twist. It was more of like a, oh, gotcha, kind of roll your eyes kind of way, which wasn't awful because how we got there was still really fun and really entertaining. But there were a few that I didn't quite get, and I don't know whether that's just me or whether it was meant to be a twist, because some of them didn't have the twist and I don't know whether I just didn't get it or not. You'll have to let me know. If any of you have read this, some of them did seem a little like, what is this ending meant to be? So that was kind of a disappointment about this book. But yeah, I noticed a lot on Goodreads that so many people rated this quite low, and I don't understand why, because it was so fun. Like, I even annotated it. It was such a fun read and I was like literally right in the mood for it. So I don't know why people gave this such a low rating, but for me personally, it was perfect book, perfect time. So I gave this a 4-star. This is my first book that I read in July. Now the second book in July was a little bit of a disappointment. I read this one during my 24-hour readathon, which hasn't gone up yet. So keep an eye out because I will post that after this one, I'm fairly sure. But that was The Last Blood Carver. I didn't get on with this. This has been on my shelf for, I want to say 2 years. I mean, the premise sounded really good. I'll read the blurb for you. In Thumus, Nika is seen as a monster who kills for pleasure, and her gift is highly prized in the city's criminal underworld. When Nika is finally captured, she is sold to the highest bidder, but a mysterious buyer is not looking for an assassin. She needs Nika to heal the only witness to her father's murder. Nika vows to hunt down the killer, and all signs point to Ven Kochin, can't remember, an alluring yet entitled physician's aid. But Nika can't help feeling drawn into his shadowy and opulent world, and soon finds herself fighting for her life and for the future of her own kind. So it's a mixture of Divine Rivals meets Cinder, which sounded really intriguing to me, and quite frankly, that premise sounds amazing. So I was instantly gripped from the beginning of that blurb. But this is a YA novel, and usually I do tend to enjoy the odd YA novel. I am not completely off of YA, but this felt way too YA for me, unfortunately. So I think for me, this book would have been so much better if it was in a more adult setting. If any of you guys watching this know any books that are very similar to this premise, but adult form, let me know, drop a comment down below, and I would love to check those out. This did feel really waffly, and I did end up skimming the book quite a lot of times, unfortunately. I did try the audiobook, but even the audiobook was quite waffly. Like, I think there were bits where she was going into a library and reading through books and things, and it just felt really unnecessary, and there was too much waffle. If you cut out, it really didn't make a difference. The plot did feel quite thin, unfortunately, as well. I didn't think that there was really much there. I loved the characters though. That is one positive. I loved the characters so much. I just did not like the plot and how it was executed, unfortunately. So many people love this book. Literally on Goodreads, so many people love this. I don't know why I didn't. It was meant to be an enemies to lovers book, but it didn't quite feel like enemies to lovers, and that progression wasn't very, it was not very smooth. It was very much like they kissed and then they fell in love immediately, and it was like, okay, that's not quite how it works. I also enjoyed the magic system in this. So along with the characters, the magic system was also quite an interesting aspect, if you will. I did enjoy that a lot, but if it was in a more adult form, probably would have liked this a lot more. So this, unfortunately, was a 2-star for me. I was very disappointed, but look at the cover. Cover gets a little moment. Cover is absolutely gorgeous. An extra star for the cover. Absolutely love this. Gorgeous, gorgeous cover. So that was the second book in July. Not off to a great start. We had a good one, and then the second one, not brilliant. Then the third book. So I was in a romance slump during this month. I was not interested in romance whatsoever, really. So I moved on to thriller, which led me on to The Intruder by Freida McFadden. This was gifted to me by my aunt, which was really, really kind of her, and it had been sat on my shelf for just under a year, so not too long, but I did really want to get to this because I am in such a Freida mood. I am loving her books currently at the moment. I mean, I loved them before, all of her books are just here, and I just felt like needing a quick, snappy book that didn't really include any romance. Really, really enjoyed this. I don't think it was quite what I was expecting at all. The plot was really, really fast-paced, incredibly gripping. I could not put this down. I think I read this in 2 days, which is pretty insane. I binged it for an entire afternoon of one day. I literally sat there all afternoon binging this, and then the next day I had like 50 pages to go, and I was just like, I'll just read it. Just read it for the 50 pages, let's just go. And it was 2 days. I was so happy. It was so, so good. The characters were really well written, and even the bad people were like easy to hate. Like, they weren't badly written, they were bad people but written well, so they were easy to hate. So despite being a thriller, the main character was actually quite funny at times, and I did find myself chuckling, as well as being a little on edge, but I was chuckling a lot, and I really like books that make me laugh despite being a thriller, a horror, a romance, a fantasy, whatever. As long as it makes me laugh, I love it. I did enjoy that aspect of it, definitely. Characters were so well written in this. I just have to like point that out, like it was so good, and I loved the past and present aspect, and it was just, I'd never read one like that before. Saying that, by this point I hadn't. I am currently reading The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden, which was written way before this, and that's exactly the same, and it's like, oh, so she had done that thing before, so that was really nice. I did enjoy seeing that in this. I wasn't massively keen on the huge twist. There were multiple little twists, but the big one I didn't really like. It felt very bizarre and quite out there, if you know what I mean. And then I feel like after the big twist, there were like little mini twists that happened afterwards, and those mini twists basically summed up that big twist and made the big twist more understandable. So I wasn't too upset about the big twist. It felt a bit more like natural, if you know what I mean. It was just that first initial like, oh, that was meant to be the twist. But as the story goes on, give it time, give it a chance to explain itself, and then it will be better. Her books are always just such a hit for me. I think the only one I didn't really enjoy was The Tenant, which is just there. Wasn't too keen on that one. I think that was the only one. The Intruder, I gave a 4.25. That is how much I was in this mood. Loved it. Great. That was my third book. So we're heading into a bit of an upper hill, if you will. It goes a little bit more up now. Next one. Saying that, I wasn't in the mood for a romance, but I wanted to give Mafia a go. Yes, romance, but I still wanted that side theme of like crime. So the fourth book that I read in July was Bloody Heart, which is bloody big, may I add, and also very floppy. Can we bring more floppy books to the UK? They're so comfortable to read. Oh, and I hate breaking a spine. But I'll give you the rundown. So this is part of the Brutal Birthright series. I think this is the fourth book. Simone Solomon lives in a gilded cage. She's been raised in a world of wealth, privilege, and above all, obedience. But one night, on her way to another tedious gala in the back of a limousine, Simone is abducted by a mafioso who intended to steal a car, not a girl, and everything changes. Dante Gallo looks like a beast and behaves like one, until he lays eyes on Simone in the rearview mirror and falls hard and fast for his accidental hostage. Their attraction is irresistible, even if it's completely wrong. They're willing to risk everything for each other, but with one disastrous move, they're split apart again. After 9 years of ignoring Simone's perfect face on billboards and magazines, Dante thinks it's finally time to move on. But then he sees her in the flesh. He hasn't forgotten. Neither has she. And now, fate has granted them a chance to reconnect. But Simone has a secret, a mistake she fears even a beast like Dante will never forgive her for. Oop. Hard and fast, that's very true. That sounds really wrong. But the romance, literally, the first 50 pages, they are already together. It is insane. I did not like that. I don't like insta-love. Hate it. Burning passion. I love the slowest of slow burns. So for me, I was hating the start of this book. And I decided to look at Goodreads to see what people were rating this, and they were loving this. So I was like, I'll give this a chance. I keep pushing through. You'll see in my 24-hour readathon the roller coaster that this book put me through. Absolutely loved this because the romance was not a big plot. It was a big bit at the beginning, but towards the end, the middle and the end, it was actually really nice because it was just about her secret, and Dante had this mafia thing going on, which is exactly what I wanted. The only thing, oh my god, I completely forgot about this. So they mentioned Dante is a beast. He's literally like 21 when they first meet at the beginning. So literally like a year older than me. And they mention him as this like really huge man, like massive man. And it's so funny to me. And then in the next book that I read, they mention that he can't get through the doorways and then he has to turn sideways to get through the door because he's so big. Like, that's actually so stupid to me. It's so funny. And the way it was described, she was like, I don't know how tall she was. I think she was like 5'3". And this guy was like... I can't. It was the most goofy thing I've ever read in a book. It was so cringe. The first, like, 100 pages literally had 2 of the worst tropes in it. My worst tropes. I hate these tropes, and they were already in the first 100 pages of this, so not a great start. But yeah, pushed through, and it was completely different to how I expected it to be. Like, absolutely completely different. Was not expecting the 9 years later because I hadn't read the back of the book, for starters, so I went in very blind. The plot became more apparent and became way more interesting, which was really, really good because there's no plot at the beginning. It was just them, yeah, if you will. And the characters, in my opinion, felt way more developed when they were apart than when they were together. So there was more to the characters and more to build upon when they were separate, which was really nice because they were separate for a lot of this. Ending did push my rating down as it felt really unnecessary and kind of disappointed me because it took an unexpected turn that it just didn't need to take. And it was like, oh, okay, so you've just done that and now all of a sudden you're doing this. You're not even married yet. Yeah, loved the middle of this. I loved the meat of the book. I think that was the best part. And it was really entertaining and quite quick, which was also really nice. So I gave this a 3.5 star, which is average for me. Very average. So what are we on? 4th book of July? Not too bad. Ooh, the 5th book. I loved this one. This was really good. This was in my 24-hour readathon as well, if I can pick it up. So I finally read Ride With Me. Wanted to read this for so long. I have had issues with F1 romance. I did not get on with the Dirty Air series at all. I just don't think I get on with Laura Nash's writing. But I read Pole Position, which is I don't think it's on, it's up the top there. It's a gay F1 romance book. And I loved it. Loved it so much. It was one of the best F1 books I've read so far. Till I read this. This was so good. I don't know whether this got me in the mood for this, but suddenly I was enjoying romance, which was weird. So I'll give you the synopsis. Stella Baldwin thought life couldn't get any worse. Being left at the altar was bad enough, but the drunken rant she posted to her social media followers in the aftermath was the cherry on top. And having to show up at her cousin's bachelorette party in Las Vegas barely 2 weeks later felt like a cruel joke. Thomas Maxwell Brown is just looking for a good time. With his family's expectations weighing him down and his career as a Formula One driver threatened by fresh talent, What better way to decompress than with a stag party in Vegas? Stella isn't the woman Thomas expects to meet that night, and Thomas isn't the man Stella expects to wake up next to the following morning with a ring on her finger. Sometimes what happens in Vegas doesn't need to stay there. This book was really fun, and I loved the characters. I think they were really likeable, and I loved the difference between them as well. So she's American and he's British, which I really enjoyed. I love that difference in character and their like nationalities. Like I really enjoyed Red, White and Royal Blue because they had that as well. But I did like that because I thought that they played on it really well. And there were like certain things that he said that she laughed at and vice versa. And there was one thing that Thomas did at one point, and it was the classic British, like, right, you know, like, gotta get going now type thing. And she found that so funny. And I just loved that she incorporated that in her book as well to make the difference really noticeable. Because a lot of the time, a lot of American authors especially just kind of say that they're British and American and then they never have that actual difference. So that was really, really nice and they played on that. The humour wasn't forced and it actually had me chuckling a few times. I don't actually think I've ever smiled so much during a book. I think I was just really, really into this. The humour was so natural and I loved that. I really, really loved that. I think that it was so fun and witty. I did love the marriage trope. I was afraid that the ending was going to be really cliche and I got so scared, but it wasn't cliche, and I was so happy when I got to the end because it actually finished in such a nice round off way. And I was just so pleased. The slow burn was really well done. It was chef's kiss. It was proper slow burn, like exactly what I was craving, because I didn't want like this whole rushing into it type thing. There was a bit at the beginning at the bachelorette party, but after that, perfect slow burn, brilliant. I also felt that the plot was separated really, really nicely. I think there was perfect amounts of each section. So we had like perfect amounts of romance, perfect amounts of like them talking about their career, perfect amounts of everything. I did think at one point I was getting quite worried because a lot of F1 books, when they write them, they don't actually write it including F1. Like it's hardly ever mentioned. I don't know if any of you have that same thing, but I feel like a lot of F1 books are just like, oh, it's F1, and then the guy only mentions it once, and then it's never a thing. It was getting like that. It was getting a bit like, where's the F1 coming into this? Because all he was saying was he did something and it just affected his career. But then there was like a bit, I can't remember where it was, perfect amount of plot that was regarding his career and her career, and that was like, oh, that's fine, we're getting more into the career side now, which is good, because you can't have an F1 book and not include the career side. You know what I mean? There was one bit I noticed, or one thing that I noticed with this, is because there was so much that Simone wanted to include in her book and the sections, it did feel really rushed at times, which was a bit of a shame. So I would just be reading and then all of a sudden there would be like in a completely different location and I'd be like, how did we get here? When did we get here? Like, I know you were discussing it a page ago, but now we're there? So there was a part where they went travelling somewhere and they were discussing it on one of the pages, and then the next page over, they were literally in that country. And I was like, she was contemplating going. She was like, do I go? Do I not? And then you're just there. So it did feel a little rushed, like the bridge between the plots weren't smooth. It just felt really like jumpy. So that was a little bit of a shame, but as soon as you keep reading, you just get into the next section of the plot and then you forget all about it. So it's not really a big deal to me. Other than that, it was a really, really fun book. Very happy I finally read it. And it was actually way higher rating than I thought it would be. I gave this a 4.5. Sorry, I couldn't read that from here. I gave it a 4.5. So I'm so pleased with this. I think it was, again, perfect book, perfect time. Got more into romance now, which was good by this point. I wasn't really feeling it at the beginning, but my month was going uphill, so that's really great. That was the 5th book of the month? Yeah, 5th book of the month. Now we move on to the 6th book of the month. Now this is the last novel that I read. We'll get to that in a second. The last novel I read was Broken Vow, which is the 5th book of the Brutal Birthright series. Loving this series so far. But I have noticed that the series is not the most memorable. I have the series at the top on my romance shelf. You can't see it here. If you want to see my shelf, by the way, I did post a decorating my bookshelf with me post, so go check that out if you want to see how I decorated this. I have changed it around a little bit since, but if you want to see that, go check it out. Anyway, this is the 5th book of the Brutal Birthright series. Getting back into this series, should I say, it reminded me of what the other series were and who the characters were, and I was like, oh, exciting. I want to like get to, because I really want to get to Seb. I want to see Seb's story so bad, but it's literally Heavy Crown, which is the last one. So I was like, I need to read this one in order to get to Heavy Crown, which it's not there, it's over there because I haven't read it yet. Broken Vow is about Riona Griffin. So Riona Griffin is gorgeous, intelligent, and iron-willed, determined to carve her name in the family ledger without a man at her side. But when she barely survives an unexpected attack on her life, her family hires Raylan Boone as her bodyguard, a rancher, a soldier, and a southern boy with plenty of charm to burn. And Riona hates his guts. She doesn't think she needs anybody, but Raylan is pretty sure she needs him. After all, she's being hunted by an assassin who never misses his mark. To keep her safe, Raylan will have to stay by her side day and night for the foreseeable future. Riona might think that there's a fate worse than death, but once they're alone on Raylan's family ranch, the chemistry between them comes to a boil and everything changes. Raylan knows Riona could learn to love him, but he'll have to keep her alive at first. And this hitman isn't getting his girl without a fight. I wasn't keen on this one. I'm just going to say that outright. I wasn't keen on this one. I don't think that it was exactly what it tells us that it's going to be. It's meant to be like an enemies to lovers, but literally the expression in my face as soon as I said that. She doesn't hate him. Like, there's a moment where she goes, I hate him. And then she's literally like eyeing him up like he's a piece of meat. No. There is not one moment in this book where she actually acts like she hates him. I did like the fact that she says that she wasn't into like men and she was all career focused. And I love that. I love that you've got like a strong female character because they show Riona as someone who doesn't want a relationship, doesn't want to have to rely on a man, and she's very career focused. And I did enjoy that, but she did feel a little bit stuck up and bratty. They do also say that Sophie Lark also says that this book is a bodyguard romance. I think he bodyguards Riona like 100 pages and that's it, and then as soon as they get to his ranch he's not bodyguarding anymore. He gives up and he turns into a completely different person. The plot feels like 2 or 3 different plots put together, like 2 or 3 different books. It felt really strange, including that the plot was thin. Like, the whole thing was this guy who would put a hitman on Riona, and then she had to be like bodyguarded in order, if that's even a word, in order for this hitman to not attack her. She goes to Raylan's ranch and they assume that she's gonna be safe there, which, fair enough. But not only that, is the hitman not really in this either? And when they finally get the hitman, spoiler alert, you don't even get to find out who it is. You just get to find out who sent the hitman on the person. But I still feel like it would be nice to know, like, the hitman was someone that maybe we knew, or... Yeah, I don't know, I feel like the main plot was forgotten about quite a lot, and then when she realised, she was like, oh man, I forgot that we actually have to solve this, so then she just did it really quickly to move on with the other plot that she wanted to do. Also, going back to Riona, I did like her at the beginning, like I said, but towards the end, she felt like every other girl, and it's like, it's a shame because we were heading in a good place where you don't have to be falling in love with this guy. Fair enough, okay, if you don't want a guy, then don't have a guy, but it's like she just ended up like every other girl at the very end. So happy we didn't get the cliche ending. I don't like the cliche pregnancy trope ending. Hate it. No, we don't need it. So glad we didn't get that. And there didn't feel like any chemistry between Riona and Raylan. I got no chemistry between the two. I didn't feel that spark. We had no romantic build-up, so when they did actually finally I say sleep together. I didn't feel like I was excited for that. It felt icky because we got no romantic build-up, so there was no reason for me to be hyping them. All of a sudden it was just like friendship, and then all of a sudden they were in bed together, and then all of a sudden they were friends again. And it's like, I get friends with benefits, yes, but that's not what this story was trying to tell. And you could tell that because towards sort of the endish, even Riona was like, you can't build a relationship just off of sex, which you can't. And they were trying to. And I was like, you can't do that because there's no romantic build-up. There felt like there was no chemistry. You were just sleeping together because you can. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like they wanted to, it just felt like because they could. And it was kind of just sad. Not to mention the book didn't need to be this long. It could have been like 200 pages shorter. There was so much that was not needed in this. I gave Broken Vow a 3-star. So that was the 6th book in month of July. Sorry, I am so hot. I am slowly losing the will to live. That was the last of my novels that I read in July. We are going to move on to my mangas. If you haven't noticed by now, I am now an avid manga lover. I have been watching anime for, oh god, like months now. And then I started getting into mangas because I thought, wow, like I want to read the mangas, I want to see what parts they've taken out. I started the Summer Hikaru Died series, which again you can't see. I need to move all these down. So I read the first one a few months ago now, maybe even 2 months ago. And then I finally read the second one, which I loved. I don't have any reviews for these. I don't have stars because to me, mangas are always going to be 5-star. I have no reason to be rating them. They are all going to be 5-star. Not to mention, especially the Summer Hikaru Died, because look how absolutely gorgeous the artwork is and the paneling. I mean, look at it. Let me show you the coloured pages. Oh, I love it! Makes me so happy. Look. Oh my gosh. Absolutely stunning. You'll know that there are different things in the manga than there is in the anime, so there's a lot more characterization. Wrong way around. I always do that. There's a lot more characterization and there's a lot more to the characters in these because obviously it's the original source and books always contain more than TV shows. So I read The Summer Hikaru Died Volume 2. Then I read Volume 3, which is a recent one. I only bought this like 2-3 weeks ago and then I just read it immediately because gorgeous. Oh, gorgeous. I really want merch. Not to mention that Hikaru looks so much younger in the mangas than he does in the anime. So it's so weird to me because he actually looks his age. This is the coloured page of this one. Hold on, let me show you that one. I'm really disappointed because I don't know when this happened. This didn't happen when I bought it, but there is like, I don't know if you can see that, a slight, yeah. I'm so disappointed. I love to keep my mangas pristine. But that was kind of upsetting. So that was the 3rd one that I read. Then I watched Banana Fish. I sobbed so hard. It felt like I was being broken up with. Like, I'm not even kidding. They've taken it off of Amazon Prime now, unfortunately. I wanted to get the mangas because it's like my 2nd favourite anime. And if I have favourite animes, I will get them in my mangas. So any mangas that I own are my favourite animes. So I've got Banana Fish Volume 1. These are a little damaged. I'm really, really sad. But, I mean, what can you do? It's so weird going from the Summer Hikaru Died to Banana Fish because the panels are just really normal, if you will, and quite, I don't want to say plain, but 1987. So this is quite an old manga, if you will. So that explains it. I love this so much. I think it was really interesting, as always, to go from the anime and then get extra details in the manga that you didn't get in the anime, because with Banana Fish there's only so much that they can explain in the anime. So when you're watching the anime, you're a little bit confused, but you get the gist. But when you're reading the mangas, they fully explain every little detail, like behind all of the schemes and everything, And I loved that because now I know, after watching the anime, what each scheme was and how it's formed and like the difference between the people. Because when you watch the anime, you don't actually know that Eiji doesn't really speak American, because obviously it's in Japanese, it's not dubbed yet. So in the manga they explain that he doesn't really speak American and he prefers to obviously speak Japanese, and he can't speak American very well, so he has broken American in this, or broken English, whatever you want to say. So that's really interesting to me, and I love like the little things like that. And not to mention the art style is like completely different to the anime, which is also really fun. So I read volume 1, volume 2, and I read volume 3. I could only get hold of these 3. I got them when it was Amazon Prime, was a weekend or something, and I got them for a deal. I've been looking on Vinted for them as well, because they're quite hard to get hold of. I don't know why, but I want to get the rest of the series. I think there's 19 mangas and 24 episodes, so I don't know why. That's really strange. But yeah, that is the end of this video. That is all I read in the month of July. So as I said at the beginning, I read a total of 11 books in July, which is mad. So yeah, this is maybe a little bit of a long video, I do apologise. But I hope you enjoyed. If there's any books in here that you have read previously or sound really interesting, drop a comment and we can have a chat about it, because I'd really like to know what your views are, and if you also enjoy mangas as well, I'd love to have a big chat about that. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and do subscribe, because it'll help me out massively, and I'd love to see you in my next video. I do have my socials linked in the description below, so do go check those out when you're not reading. I do have my Fable, my Goodreads, and my Instagram, so go check those out. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you did get this far, thank you so much, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!